How is a man with 10% of a brain able to function normally? What did 16th century Arctic explorers eat that made their skin fall off? Why did Columbus think the Earth had a nipple, like a breast? Learn the history behind these stories and well over 100 more in my new book, Facts That Aren't True. Check out my other book too, link in the description. Darth Dawkins' obsession with me has never ceased. I get DMs from people all the time saying, Darth is currently doing a live stream talking about you. I get those like once a week. I actually jumped into one of his live streams completely unplanned a couple of days ago in the morning. It was a pretty brief interaction. My phone does this really annoying thing where if I forget to turn it off and then turn it back, like restart it, then when I screen record stuff on TikTok, my audio comes in several seconds after I started talking. I only talked to him for 3 minutes, and essentially all I did was I went up there and I said, Darth, are zygotes human beings? Because the one time he ever came to my live stream and we discussed, it was going okay until that point, and he would not answer that question because he knows he can't answer that question. And then we spent 10 minutes on it before he rage quitted. But I asked him that, and he said yes. And then I asked them if they have beliefs, or if they know God exists, and he said no. I said, therefore, it's not true that all humans know God exists. Your worldview has fallen apart. I was essentially being toxic to the most infamous internet bully that there is. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying I think it's permissible. And then he said, no, in our worldview, they don't have the capacity yet for that. So I said, oh, so you just, by total arbitration, just say, well, at this point, and it'll be different for every single person and in every single case, this is when it starts to work so that I can just retroactively make my worldview function. And then I interrupted him one too many times and he kicked me out. But one of my friends caught him and PMARS whining about me, and he was able to record a little bit of it. So let's see what they have to say.
Let me go. I can find on my computer who asked Fiasco Peterson.
I don't know why he got Fiasco Peterson. It's such a bad nickname. It's actually worse than Pointless Peterson, that inspiring sophistry came up with.
No, let's go down. Okay, that's not it.
He blocked me on Discord. What Greg Botson had to say.
Oh,
sorry. Yeah, this is a screen recording, so the audio is not great.
Fiasco Peterson blocked you?
Yeah, I was having Greg Botson.
Oh my gosh.
And he blocked me. But the thing is, Greg Botson is very polite. Like, he didn't say anything rude, so.
Neither did I.
It was just purely based on.
That's because Fiasco Peterson is completely inept at debating on a metaphysical level.
Okay, before we get to Darth, I'll tell you what's going on here with PMARS. I said to somebody, because I had caught Darth saying this, you're either with Jesus or against Jesus. There's no neutrality when it comes to Jesus and God. And this is one of Darth's things. He says you can't be agnostic, because he says, if you don't accept God as being the ultimate cause for blank, that means you are denying that God exists. That's the conclusion to this script he runs. I don't know if any of you have heard it, but I've heard it a million times. That he begins it with, an atheist claims they merely suspend judgment. So then PMARS, who I didn't know was PMARS because their username doesn't say that, just started spamming with a ChatGPT bot that he programmed for this, that he calls chatbotson or something. He fed it what I just said, if you don't deny God as being the reason for blank. And so his bot responds, if you say I lack belief in God, that still carries a worldview implication. You're saying the universe can be rationally understood without reference to God. That's not neutrality. That's a position about reality. And if you're engaging in conversation or debate, like here, you're implying reality is intelligible without God. Morality, science, and logic can be grounded without theism. The burden is on others to justify their worldview, but you don't need to justify yours. Those are positive metaphysical commitments, whether you like the label or not. Now, we don't get into this, but I've seen Darth run that exact same kind of trick before. And all this is doing is conflating proximate and ultimate causes. I can look outside and I can see a horse walking down the sidewalk, and I can intuit that the reason I'm hearing clippity clops is because there is a horse walking outside. I am not referencing whether or not God exists for that proximate cause. You can be agnostic and still maintain claims about cause and effect and proximate causes like that. You can be completely agnostic as to whether there even is some sort of ultimate cause behind it. But here is what was actually said. If you define God to be the necessary precondition for intelligibility, go ahead. We can also imagine a possible universe where intelligibility happens and no God exists. Intelligibility, therefore, isn't a symmetry breaker because both universes have this property. I still don't commit to God's non-existence. Furthermore, there's no such thing as empirical validation of a metaphysical claim, so it's a false burden to begin with. The bot, and by extension PMARS, well, actually I can't tell at this point, but they respond, you're imagining a universe where intelligibility just happens without God, but that's not an explanation, it's an assertion. You're assuming intelligibility without grounding it. No, I'm not. I'm just making the observation. It's not satisfying, but it's also not logically bankrupt to say, I don't have a worldview, I just make observations. That's the whole point of the argument. Imagining a rational universe without God doesn't justify one. It's like saying logic exists because it works. That's circular. Also, saying metaphysical claims aren't empirically verifiable doesn't relieve you of the burden. You're still using logic, reasoning, and morality. I'm not using morality anywhere here. Those are all metaphysical. So the question is, what makes them valid in your worldview? You can't reject all foundations and keep all the benefits. So if intelligibility can just happen in your imagined godless universe, how do you know your reasoning is valid within that universe? What's the foundation for trusting these things? Responded, I made it very clear that I didn't say we live in a godless universe. Your bot seems to be programmed to not accept that agnosticism is possible. I also didn't posit a cause or reason for the utility of logic, didn't say a thing about logic even, and then I said metaphysics is bullshit, which I do think, and I also kind of don't think at the same time. You can pause and read what the bot or PMARS or whatever says here, and I'll just read what my response was to it, because this is basically where it ends. But I don't see any problem with logic or the laws of logic recursively validating their efficacy and standing as brute facts. So in a similar vein, the rules of grammar can only be demonstrated to be true grammatically. It's not circular, it's recursive. You literally can't describe grammatical rules or language non-linguistically. I don't do this stuff as a hobby or have any training in it, so I'm not speaking authoritatively, but I genuinely see no contradiction in that. So where were we?
He could not respond to with the bot. He could not debate the bot.
No, he's not trying to be mean.
I mean, I honestly feel like I did. Oh yeah, he said I. So the blocking thing. I just got so sick of seeing these obvious ChatGPT multi-paragraph things, and I just wanted them gone. So I blocked that user. I didn't know that it even was PMARS. I would have done it anyways. So I just wouldn't have to deal with them because it's completely lazy and stupid and circular. It's just like a pre-sup bot. That's worse than talking to Darth. Well, no, it's not worse, but it's bad.
Totally out of his league.
And then I make fun of them for not being able to debate a bot. They throw at me, but they're afraid of Greg Botson.
I'm not afraid of it. I like I said, I dealt with it.
That is, I'm still blown away at what a great
Yeah,
AI that is.
pretty good.
It is not good.
I'm getting pretty good with this AI stuff. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I think because
Like, no accredited university in the world would award a degree for a thesis based on presuppositionalism. None. So a bot that does it isn't good at anything.
when Darth's not around, you can like, hey, Greg Botson, how would you say this? And it's, it's not maybe not as good as Darth, right? But it's like it's not bad. So
No, it's amazing, man. I think it's actually you can tell.
You guys are gonna get me out of a job.
Darth, I know Darth.
Yes, please. So they're going to play a really short clip from the Q&A when I had that debate with Brian Lauer, and we got asked this question. Well, here, just listen.
Discussion. So that one was for you, Brian, or at least directed towards you. Planet Peterson, this one's for you. So Kevin says, for Planet Peterson, what is metaphysically necessary for everything?
Now, that's the same sort of question as saying, what is it that is foundational for everything?
Okay, so I had no idea what the point of the question was supposed to be. Maybe Darth's right, that's what it means. I already forgot what he said.
Now, that's the same sort of question as saying, what is it that is foundational for everything?
Right, I was going to say necessary, but foundational for everything. Okay, Darth would say God, because Bible, because Revelation, which is not an argument at all. There's no such thing as the Bible. Darth can't read Greek and Hebrew, so he actually has no idea about whether or not any of the stuff in his translation is true. Nobody anywhere in the world has the original words, so we don't even know what the original words were. The Bible didn't used to exist 5,000 years ago. Was the Bible true? Obviously not. I don't have all day to go over how many stupid problems with that there are, but let's just move on to the question I was asked.
Okay, no, it's no different. All right, and watch how Planet Peterson freaks out because he's a positivist.
This is this is a gobbledygook question. I would think that Brian.
That's not a gobbledygook question.
Yes, it is.
What is metaphysically necessary for everything?
So, Darth, I don't know if you know this, but there's no verification. Well, he's aware of the arguments behind this because he appears to be well read in some things. And I bring up this language, truth, and logic and the logical positivism movement in my answer here. Darth, I invented Spanky long before I had any even rudimentary, understanding in philosophical terms about this whole thing about what is metaphysically real and so on and so forth. And yet, despite that, Spanky still utterly defeats and renders all this completely pointless. All I have to do is define this thing to be the exact same things that you are, and then claim that it specially reveals to me that your conceptions are false. And there's fuck all you can do about it except say, nuh-uh, the magical thing that I believe in is the real thing. Your thing is false. And I'll say, nuh-uh, my magical thinking and special revelation says it's true. This doesn't even work within Christianity. A presuppositionalist who tends to be an Orthodox or a Protestant would completely reject this idea. Oh, well, the Holy Spirit guides the Pope and the Pope is infallible in that capacity. Nuh-uh. How do you know that? Because I have revelation. No, actually, the Pope does because the Holy Spirit is directly... No, it's not. Well, according to them, it's this odd case of according to them, according to you, according to them, they're right. Because it's the exact same argument. Now, mine's a little bit different because I have different parts, but you can't prove me wrong. And all I have to do is say my worldview is the only possible truth and everything else is incoherent, blah, blah, blah. You can literally... There's no distinguishing one metaphysical claim from being false or true. The best you could do is just find out if there are any contradictions, and then you could declare one of them is false.
It wouldn't be gobbledygook to say, what is it that is foundational to everything? Is that a gobbledygook question? No, he just...
That's not, but this, the way it was presented to me, that's how I thought about it. Whatever.
This is a gobbledygook question. In fact, I'm glad it went to you, Eric. You know what the definition of metaphysics is? Or one of the definitions? An abstract theory with no basis in reality.
Yep. So that is one of the definitions.
An abstract theory with no basis in reality. Where the hell did he come up with that?
I didn't come up with it, Darth. That's one of the definitions. I'll just leave that there for you to read. Somebody left this comment, and it's from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. It's pretty long. I'm not going to read the entire thing. You can if you want to, but it pretty much just says, oh, well, maybe there is no such thing as metaphysics. Or, like what logical positivists say, it's not really that there's no such thing as metaphysics, because even that claim would sort of be a metaphysical claim. It's just that, like it says here, they're meaningless because they're impossible to answer. I've only read a little bit of this. I really got into a couple of books. I just finished The Darkening Age, and I'm reading a really long book about science in the Roman Empire. But here are just some general notes and ideas I had while reading that and looking into some of these things. Now, I don't call myself a logical positivist. I don't really call myself anything except Eric. But a lot of it resonates with me. So, like, for example, here it is kind of as a syllogism. A proposition is knowable only if it is in principle verifiable through empirical observations, logical necessity, or self-evidence. So this would include things that are analytically true, like a bachelor is not married because a bachelor is not married. P2, metaphysical claims such as universals exist, the soul is immaterial, or only substances are real, are not verifiable in principle, either empirically or analytically. If a claim cannot be verified in principle, then it cannot be justified as knowledge. This is a necessary precondition for intelligibility. I have a quote here, and I don't remember where this quote came from, but it says, metaphysical claims are methodologically excluded from meaningful discourse because they do not meet the criteria of empirical verification. So in this case, premise 3 is, it sounds like a metaphysical claim, but you can just say that it's a presupposition. You can also say that I'm open to evidence that metaphysical claims can be proven at some later point, but as of yet, it stands that they don't. So the conclusion, therefore, metaphysical claims cannot be known to be true. Metaphysical knowledge is impossible. Now again, that's a metaphysical claim, so I don't know about impossible, but you could say that they're meaningless, and then you're not making a contradiction. Another example, you cannot infer the existence of an entity from the mere syntax of a proposition. Metaphysical arguments are often dependent on linguistic constructions. If there is motion, there can be an unmoved mover, and those introduce entities without independent verification. Linguistic coherence or conceptual necessity does not entail ontological reality. Conclusion, therefore, metaphysical reasoning cannot establish the existence of entities beyond empirical or logical necessity. Metaphysical claims are unfalsifiable. You can't prove or disprove them. They're immune to error and thus immune to truth because there's no way to distinguish a true metaphysical claim from a false one. Again, I would say if you could find a contradiction in one, then you could falsify it, I guess. But when it comes to competing ones, like Yahweh versus Spanky, there's fuck all you can do, especially when you appeal to, oh, me heard it in my head. There's a really long, awkward silence that I'm skipping over, and I talked for a while, but they're going back to what I said one of the definitions of metaphysics was, and now they're looking it up, and I think awkwardly they realize I'm right.
This is it's an oversimplified and inaccurate description of metaphysics. That's what the AI says.
Oh, okay, never mind. He fed his AI what I said, and then his AI said I'm wrong. The way that they're appealing to the AI is kind of weird here.
On Google, finding a definition.
You know, I think this is also an etymological fallacy because when you look at metaphysics, the derivative of that is like meta just means above or beyond. And so they think that nothing is above or beyond reality. So therefore metaphysics is just meaningless. But that's not really what metaphysics is. It's more like what's fundamental to reality.
Metaphysics is just the study of reality. There are metaphysical claims like what ultimately is a foundation behind reality or what reality is. But that's not its definition. So I don't think I'm committing any sort of fallacy or anything.
Yeah, so here's what ChatGPT. Yes, metaphysics is sometimes defined in a dismissive way, like an abstract theory with no basis in reality, but that is not the philosophical definition. Okay?
I literally said one of the definitions.
Okay? It says, in philosophy, metaphysics is the branch of philosophy concerned with the fundamental nature of reality. This is what a dope Fiasco Peterson is, right?
I think some people,
Asking what's metaphysically necessary is just asking the same question as what is foundational to the nature of everything.
Yeah, and I can say that that's a completely meaningless statement. Now, to give an actual answer, which I guess I haven't done, but intuitively, I would say reality is brute fact. Universe exists. Brute fact. There's nothing that is knowable that is based in anything outside of that. What somebody like Darth would do is say, no, magic exists, a magical realm exists, a magical being exists, and that's the ultimate reason. And all they can do is prove that that's true according to their own argument. But the argument proves nothing other than the argument.
Is that a gobbledygook question? No, it's not. It's because he has no answer, nor could he.
Now, how did you determine that what is fundamental and foundational to all possibility is an array of fundamental particulars? How did you come to know this?
Because what we call impossible depends on the states of affairs of those particulars.
That was gobbledygook, what you just said.
I wonder if when he hears metaphysics, does he think supernatural? Is that like the same thing?
No, I don't think that.
Negative or skeptical definition of an abstract theory with no basis in reality tends to appear in popular skepticism. Okay? Or scientific-oriented critiques, especially from, you ready for this? From logical positivism. Oops!
What do you mean, oops?
Yeah.
Historical thinkers who have dismissed any discussion of metaphysics. A.J. Ayer. And then I'm about to play you. Watch this. Okay, here's Planet Peterson. He's about to hold up the by A.J. Ayer.
Yeah.
So to say that this is
So the clip that you already were aware of, this is really cute. The clip that he's already aware of, and he knows exactly what happens next, he's pretending like he's predicting what happens next.
This is some weird Philbro, just unbearable stuff. What is metaphysically necessary for everything? On what grounds are we claiming that something that is metaphysical is the reason that things exist? Like, what the hell does necessary?
This is why I call him Fiasco Peterson. This is literally the kind of answer that you would get from a cocky 16-year-old.
That was a question, Darth, and you're not giving an answer.
Everything mean the reason things exist, the reason things are intelligible. What? This is just complete nonsense. But the other thing about metaphysical claims is there are like I've been reading some like philosophy from.
There it is. He's holding up the book by A.J. Ayer, Language, Truth, and Logic.
Not everything in it resonates with me, but they kind of reject this concept of metaphysics.
And he pulled it up right off his desk.
Yeah, and I said not everything in it resonates with me.
What he's doing is he's just giving a derisive response. He's not. First of all, he doesn't understand that when somebody says, "Is there a metaphysical basis for everything?" It's no different than saying, "What is it that's foundational to everything?"
Yeah, Spanky. And see, Darth, that answer is no different than Yahweh, even though they both can't be true.
And he goes, "Well, that's a gobbledygook question. That doesn't mean anything at all."
That was gobbledygook, what you just said.
That just goes to show you how uneducated
It's a meaningless statement. Yeah.
he is. Okay?
I don't know, Darth. I have 2 degrees. How many do you have?
Metaphysics asks questions. What does it mean for something to be real? Why does anything exist at all? Okay? What is the relationship between ordinary things and the grand? Okay? So this is what Peterson does. Whatever he doesn't understand or he doesn't agree with, he just cockily, in a cockish fashion,
Cockish?
is dismissive about. He's very cocky.
There's no metaphysical, like, you would have to assume, like, reality is just the composition, designated cacophony of chance-based things that just happen to be the case.
Exactly. But you see, you will have this cocky attitude and this derisiveness from people that are positivists.
What? So I like how he says exactly to the idiotic, typical straw man of, oh, well, you just believe that everything is a cosmic accident.
Okay, and I'm distinguishing that from logical positivism, which apparently he's both. Okay, and people who are empirical.
I literally said not everything in it resonates with me. Jeez, what a liar.
And materialist, which it seems very clear that Fiasco Peterson is. So when you ask a question that contains the word metaphysics, right? People who are atheist materialists, they automatically get cocky and they're derisive. That it is impossible to either be neutral or dismissive of metaphysics because everybody has a metaphysic.
Yeah, I already discussed that point. The larger point was that they are literally meaningless. And Darth, I have a metaphysics. Spanky is the grounding for all truth claims. Well, that's it for your daily dose of Darth. I'll see you tomorrow.
Gobbledygook.